Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Respectfully. Today, I have a very, very special guest. She's an icon. She's a legend. She's a wife. She's a mother. She's a former cast member of Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, and she is currently a CRNA. Ladies and gentlemen, my friend, my cousin, Annemarie Wiley.
Hello, my love.
How you doing?
I'm wonderful. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. Cheers.
Yay, cheers.
We have so much to get into today.
We have so much to get into.
Child, we were getting into the tea before the cameras even started rolling.
We don't get out of the tea. We stay in the tea.
Because there's just so much to spill.
There sure is.
Well, I want to just start with asking you why you think it is. Because you know this series is called Allegations Against.
Okay, yeah.
Why is it, with being the light that you are, why are you so polarizing?
Why am I so polarizing? I love that you asked that question. That's a great question. I will answer this way. I'm a very honest and a very real person. Mm-hmm. I have been through a lot of life experience. Okay. And when you have experienced a lot, when you've seen a lot, when you have lived in different environments, cultures, been around all sorts of people, you have a different perspective on things. Mm-hmm. And you are like, I've done the work to really understand who I am and what I want. And I can be real and honest with myself. And I think that threatens a lot of people, because when you're around someone that can be real and honest with themselves about who they are, mm-hmm. it forces you to either do the same thing or realize that you're not comfortable doing that.
Right.
And so I think that is what makes me so polarizing. Like, people see me and they're like, well, how she can't do this and this and this and this, all these things. And yes, I can. And you can too. But I think people have blocks and they're limited by that. And so when they see me in my truth, in my strength, it is very intimidating to them.
You essentially hold up a mirror to them about their own insecurities.
Yeah. But I don't even do it on purpose. Like,
right.
I like to make people feel seen. Mm-hmm. Like, if you're talking to me, I'm not going to be like, oh, mm-hmm, okay, cool. What else is going on? Like, I'm looking at you. I'm reciprocating the conversation. I'm asking you questions back. I like people to be seen.
Right.
And so I don't know. I don't know. Meh. Sorry. I'm like, meh, that's it.
Well, I feel like anybody that has a true sense of self-worth, when they see you and how you carry yourself and how you are thriving, they look at that like, okay, that's someone I can relate to. They don't view you as competition. They don't view you as somebody that is trying to make them feel worse about themselves. They view you as an 8.5.
See, oh gosh. Here we go. Okay, first off, relatable. That is all I've ever wanted to be, is relatable to people, because I'm not somebody that was, born in Beverly Hills with a silver spoon in my mouth, right? Like, I grew up in a very small farm town in Canada. Biracial. I was put up for adoption when I was born. I was adopted by a Dutch Indonesian family. So, I'm Dutch and Nigerian, and I grew up in an Asian household, right? So I've seen, that's why I say I've been around and seen a lot of different cultures. I played sports to get myself through college, got my nursing degree, moved to the United States in 2005, did, the whole visa game for many, many years. Worked like 72-hour work weeks, grinding before I went to grad school, met my NFL husband, and, the rest is history. Now I have these 4 wonderful children, this incredible husband, this really, really amazing life. But I say that to say that other people can do it too. Mm-hmm. Like, I never want to be like, oh, look at me, my life is so wonderful. I'm like, look at how hard I worked and look at the choices that I made. You can do that too. And like, let's do it together. Ask me questions. Like, how can I help? How can I be someone that you can look up to and relate to? And like, let's do it together, Yeah. So I like being relatable to people. And 8.5, let's go into 8.5. You would be surprised how many comments I still get on that 8.5 thing. And for, your viewers that don't know, let's give them a background on it. So on my days on the Housewives, there was one confessional, and I was asked, what Like, why did your husband fall in love with you? Or why did your husband choose you? Marcel, he always tells me that the reason he fell in love with me is because he's like, you're an 8.5 at everything. And I'm thinking 8.5 is great.
Exceptional.
Like, to be an 8.5 at everything is great. I'm not talking about like, you're a 4 at this and you're a 9 at this. Like, no, I am exceptional at everything. But I also have the self-awareness to know that I'm not perfect, because no one is perfect at anything. And like I said, I was an athlete, right? I'm never going to have a coach that's like, you're perfect, you're a 10, you don't need to practice doing anything anymore. Like you're perfect, you're done. Like, no, I'll never have that mentality. I am someone who will always, make harder goals. I will always continue to raise the bar so that I can keep achieving more in my life, because I know that there is always going to be more to attain. So yeah, to me, like 8.5 across the board, that is fantastic.
Right. And I was so thrown when I saw how angry people are to this day, years later, after the whole 8.5 conversation started. Because when I saw that, someone who isn't always going straight for the negative, I saw this as, oh, wow. What he's saying is that you are exceptional on average with everything and that there's still room to grow. Yeah. And I feel like if anything, that's true love. That's giving you the grace of, I know that you're already killing it here, and I know that you are always wanting to be better. Yes. That shows that he knows who you are, because you're someone who's always wanting to get to that next level.
Yeah, 100%. And I always say this too. I have a real husband. Like my husband is my best friend.
Not all the housewives can relate.
Well, they don't have any husbands.
Oh. Wake that up.
But no, like that is my best friend. Like, I can keep it 100 with him. He can keep it 100 with me. If we're getting dressed up to go to dinner or something, if I'm like, honey, do you like this outfit? Is this cute or whatever? He'll tell me no. If he doesn't like it, I can choose to do what I want with that information. If I really wanted to wear it, I can still wear it. Mm-hmm. If I don't want to, I won't. But the fact is, he was honest and real to me. Mm-hmm. So when my husband tells me something, I will never be that insecure woman that is wondering, oh, am I too fat? Am I too whatever? Because I will know that what is being told to me is the honest truth. Mm-hmm. And I think that's where a lot of relationships fail, because the wife or the husband are putting so much pressure on their spouse for their validation, right, because they don't have that internal validation for themselves. Mm-hmm. And I already have that. So he can tell me, he can keep it real. And I love that he's always telling me the truth. I never have to guess.
It goes even further beyond just romantic relationships. It also goes to your relationships with other people. Mm-hmm. Do you think your desire to always keep it real, you caring about facts more than feelings, is why you clash with some of the other housewives? You know
what? I used to be very, very concerned. Like, I was a people pleaser. Let's just label it, right? I was a people pleaser, always very concerned with like, oh, don't say that. You don't want to hurt someone's feelings and like, that kind of thing. I think it's just the culture in which I grew up in. And I've learned over the years to, I'll never do something to intentionally hurt someone's feelings without there being, like a reason behind it, in that I want to make a situation better for them or help them if I can, right? I'll never just maliciously say anything to anybody. And I think that, that just goes back again to people being able to be genuine about who they are. Like, if you don't have the self-awareness to be able to be honest with other people, if you can't be honest with yourself, put it like this, if you can't be honest with yourself, I know you can't be honest with me.
Right.
And because I can be honest with myself, then I can be honest with other people, and I can offer help where I think that it might help. And I love receiving that feedback in return. I love to be critiqued. Please, like, tell me how I can improve. You know what I mean? I love being challenged. I always want to grow. So if you see an area of weakness for me, please tell me, because I'd love to learn from you.
Mm-hmm. When you talk about an area of weakness, it makes me automatically think of that recent Whoopi Goldberg clip where she was saying that the reason that men don't want biological men in women's sports is because men view women as weak. But I view it as actually maybe women or men are viewing women as so strong and working so hard to get to where they are in athletics that this is why they want to help protect and preserve women's sports. So with you being a former athlete yourself and with one of the biggest allegations against you, I would just like to know, what is your answer when someone says, are you transphobic?
Number one, absolutely am not transphobic. And I have also learned that title, transphobic, bigot, racist, those are all just titles and labels that are thrown on people in order to place you in a position of being fearful and to silence you. So those things are used as weapons against you. And in terms of that particular conversation, yes, I was a former athlete. I've played sports since I was 5 years old. I have arthritis in my neck. I need bilateral knee replacements. I gave a lot to my sports. I was a collegiate basketball player. And I think that this conversation is one that is so polarizing because there is an objective truth that a lot of people don't want to recognize, but there really is. There is an objective truth, and there is an element of common sense. Biological males and biological females are different. Biologically, we are just different, right? Mm-hmm. Strength, speed, wingspan, lung capacity, heart size, oxygen carrying capacity. There are so many things that are different between the two sexes. And so when you're taking someone who has gone through male puberty and you're putting them against a female, there are going to be unsurmountable differences in competition. It becomes an issue of fairness. It becomes an issue of safety. And those facts do not make someone transphobic. I am someone who just wants to see a fair and equal and safe playing field for the girls that are playing. And, when you hear this rebuttal to that and people say, oh, you're transphobic for thinking that, or you're just bringing so much unnecessary hate to the trans community that's already suffering. And my response to that is this: no one is saying that trans athletes can't compete. No one is saying that. No one is trying to be hateful in this argument. When you look at trans women, trans men, okay, so trans men, so someone that is born female, they are still competing in the female category, right? Mm-hmm. So why can't it be the other way around? Why can't trans women, someone that is born male, why can't they still compete with men? It only happens one way. Do you realize that?
Yeah.
It only happens one way. So it's a simple solution. If everyone just competes in the category at which they were born, the sex that they were born into, then this would not be an issue of fairness and an issue of safety.
Yeah, I always do find it interesting. You never see trans men fighting to be in men's sports and men's athletics. And there's a really common sense reason as to why.
Of course.
And, I find it so interesting that you were thrust into the conversation of just trans women in sports. And just to walk through so that I have the timeline correct.
Yeah.
So when you started on Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, an old tweet was surfaced of your husband, NFL player Marcellus Wiley. Mm-hmm. And what exactly did that tweet say?
So I think it was actually a clip from a show.
Okay.
And he had said, that he would not allow, because we have 3 daughters. We have 4 children. 3 of them are girls. He said he would not allow our girls to play against a transgender athlete. He said that he would protect them from that for obvious safety reasons. So when I first started filming, this clip resurfaced, and how people love to do, they just clump a couple in together, and all of a sudden the Wileys are transphobic, and it's this whole horrible, character assassination and labeling and all those kinds of horrible things. So when I was very much not a political person. I didn't like to talk about things like this. But when I was asked my opinion, I said, I agree with him. It doesn't make sense. And for all the reasons that I just told you, right? For the obvious physical differences. I was an athlete my entire life, and I have 3 daughters. So I think that, there's a reason why we have Title IX, right? Mm-hmm. Women fought so hard in order for us to have our own sports category. And I think that needs to be upheld and respected. So I was asked my opinion, and I was immediately vilified for saying that.
On the show.
I was immediately vilified for saying that. Mm. and and then silenced and then canceled. And, the media was very, very, very harsh to me. And I really didn't understand why. Again, as somebody that was not at all in the political space, and, I grew up very liberal. I was, a Democrat up until this election. And so I didn't understand. I was very confused as to why that viewpoint was considered so radical or conservative. I really thought that was just common sense, right? And so then I started doing my own research and kind of looking into what sorts of viewpoints were considered to be conservative now. And that's when I realized really just how far left the Democratic Party had moved their agenda. And that was a very eye-opening period of time for me.
I feel like a lot of people have a similar viewpoint of that, where they feel like they didn't leave their side left them.
That's exactly what I say. I did not leave the Democratic Party left me.
I mean, when your values just start taking a nosedive into the most radical ideology where you just have to erase all common sense, all common knowledge. I mean, I don't understand how you could expect people to just ride along with that as if it's normal.
Right.
Like even on the right, there are people who try to go so far with their beliefs. And I look at that, I'm like, y'all are crazy. Y'all are tripping. Like if that ever became the normal mindset of conservatives, I wouldn't align with conservatives either. Right. So it's like, I feel like anybody who is sane and has a good understanding of what's going on in the world, they end up becoming pretty centrist at this point, or at least leaning right.
Right. That's exactly what it was. All of a sudden, I'm like, okay, I'm not a Democrat anymore. What am I? I guess I'm a moderate. I'm told I'm a moderate. And then I'm told, I'm right of center, learning all these new terms and all this lingo in this political landscape. But yeah, I mean, I guess I would consider myself right of center, like I'm a mother, I'm a wife, I'm a professional, I'm somebody that, I do care about safety. I care about, our the financial landscape of the country. Like those are things that are important to me because we're leaving this country to our children. And I want to make sure that they are in the most stable position, and if that makes me, someone with conservative views, so be it. But I'm looking outside of just this little bubble that I live in, right? Do I care about there not being crime in my neighborhood? Of course I do. Do I care about there not being homeless people all over Los Angeles? Of course I do, right? Because I have other things to live for that go beyond myself. And again, if that makes me conservative, so be it.
It's so interesting to me that you literally did not ask to be a political figure by any means. You just got thrust into it because you dared to put your ideas out there. Right. And it's a shame that you've been villainized so much in, let's just say, on various media platforms, because people don't get to really see the beauty of your life. They don't get to see how hard you work, how well you're raising your children, how much you love your husband. Do you think that there's an intentional effort on TV networks to not showcase a strong, successful Black family?
I actually do. That's kind of something I feel strongly about as well. I feel like we are shown the bottom rung when it comes to Black culture oftentimes. Let's look at our music, for example, right? Typical rap music, hip hop music, it's talking about drugs. It's talking about money. It's talking about B words and H words. It's talking about buying cars. It's talking about buying jewelry. And it's just, you know what? Where is the generational wealth? Why can we rap about buying a house? You know what I mean? I'm just like, why are we constantly bombarding Black youth with images of ignorance?
Right.
Right? It's just, and I feel like it is perhaps done intentionally. You know what, if we can just keep them distracted long enough so that they don't, collectively come together and ask for anything of substance, to ask for anything more, to try to build something for themselves, let's just keep them there where they're just worried about ignorance. There's an intentional agenda behind doing that. I just wish that we could be shown positive images, where I would love to see strong, happy, nuclear Black families. I would love to see someone educating our youth on upward mobility, so that we had better things to strive for.
Right. You know, I feel like, especially in the Black community, we're the only racial group that is constantly uplifting our lowest common denominator.
Agreed.
And then we try to say that you're corny, you're lame, you're a cornball.
You're a sellout, you're an Uncle Tom.
All these different things just because you want to have a better future for yourself.
Right.
It's like when people try to tell me that I sound white, I'm like, no, I sound like somebody who didn't want to be dependent on a stimulus check. I sound like someone who didn't want to live in Section 8. That's what I sound like. And these people try to clown us. And then what's even more sad is I feel like there's this territorialism when it comes to Black people who are elevating their control or they're elevating their careers. I think of like the Naomi Campbell, Tyra Banks situation, where there's often these situations, especially among Black women, where there's only space for one.
Only space for one. Yeah, you know, I have this theory that I feel like it kind of goes back to Jim Crow. I think that we were very intentionally told that, you know, there can only be one of you. Like you're gonna be in the house. You're gonna be out in the field. They created this division between us on purpose. There are only so many men to go around, so you're gonna compete over the men. Like they made Black women compete with each other for everything. And I feel like we are one of very few cultures who we just can't band together.
Right.
We are constantly, like you said, raising up our lowest common denominator and always tearing each other down. We are in constant competition with each other. Like some of the people that have been the most backstabbing to me have actually been Black women in entertainment. And, you know, ones that, you know, you think are, you know, a friendly or a friendly associate or whatever you want to call them. And they're the first ones that will stab you in the back to try to take something away from you. And I think that stems from insecurity of, you know, you have something I don't have, so I'm going to try to tear you down to not let you get that part. There's this constant competition between Black women. It's really sad, you know, because I think we would be so strong and so powerful if we really did uplift each other, you know. And you always hear that hashtag women supporting women, and like, yeah, we're gonna support each other if you agree with me, if I'm not threatened by you,
right,
if you don't have something I want, like, but there's never just this unconditional support of each other. And I wish it really wasn't like that.
You know, and sometimes when they see you shining, they'll say things like, not all skin folk are kinfolk.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I heard they did.
You know, I read a little something, if you don't mind me asking. I read a little birdie named Garcelle said, not all skin folk are kinfolk. What do you think she meant by that?
You know, I don't know, because like I do not watch that show. I don't know. But of course, you know, people like bombarded me with messages telling me about it. And so I don't know. I don't know if she was talking about me or if she was talking about the other new girl. I really don't know. But, you know, what I can say, though, is, you know, I have some friends that are, you know, like the A-list Black Hollywood crew, and
period.
I mean, I know.
Wait that up. I because you ate that.
No, but like I don't
so
even
humble.
mean to. I don't mean to. I married an NFL player. I have these circles of people. Like he's from LA. Like I've been around people. Like I've been around rich people and famous people. Whatever. It is what it is. But so when I started filming for the show, they warned me. You know, they really said, like, you know, just watch your back, because there was an era in, you know, Black Hollywood or whatever you want to call it, where there could only be one. And she's from that era. Oh. So they are competitive with each other, because they're like, if I'm going to be the one to shine, so you can't shine. So they're always going to be very competitive with each other. So I kind of, you know, knew that going into it. And then, you know, I look at the situation now, and I just feel really bad for her. Like I do. I pity her. I do. No shade.
No shade. Just tea.
No shade.
No shade. Just tea.
I really feel bad for her, because, you know, this is somebody who, you know, was a legit Hollywood actress, right? Doing, you know, legit Hollywood things. And then she said, when we were filming our reunion last year, they aired it, but she said, you know, she couldn't get a role anymore, and so she had to do something to support herself, and so she had to take this, and she's not happy doing it, and she's got to fight with ladies all day. Like, you know, that's got to be a really big piece of like humble pie to swallow. And, you know, somebody of her age maturity,
a woman of a particular age.
A woman of a particular age. Thank you so much. Like, you know, I would wish that she could get past bitterness and just find happiness.
Yeah.
Find some joy. You know what I mean? Because like, I'm going to protect my joy. I'm going to protect my peace. And goodness, when I'm of that maturity, I hope that's not what I'm doing. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
I hope that she finds peace and joy and doesn't have to just live in bitterness.
You are so sweet and kind in the way you explain this, because I would have been talking a little mess. I would have been like, girl, you fell off out of Hollywood and then you had to resort to being a housewife. Meanwhile, you, Miss Annemarie Wiley, you were requested to be on the show while you were minding your business, enjoying your time with your husband in your nice home with your beautiful kids. Not everybody has that happy household like you do. Next.
I was just trying to have fun. I was just trying to have a good time.
And clearly you did, because you're still a topic of discussion from what I've been told, because I refuse to watch, certain TV shows. And you are still a topic of discussion on certain TV shows.
Apparently.
And I feel like that really does show that they needed you more than you needed them, especially when it comes to your joy. And I also find it really funny how they try to replace you with another Black woman who Garcelle seems to also take issue with. And I just find that funny.
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to what we just talked about. Like, she is from an era where there could only be one, and she's very competitive and unkind to the other Black women. And, she's always like the race card. The race card has to stop. The race card really has to stop. And I'm going to tell you why. Because we know how damaging it is to the broader community when you are always playing the race card where it is not applicable. Because does racism still exist in our country? I truly believe it does. But I feel like when you're constantly blaming everything on race, you are really watering down the scenarios when it actually does happen, so that when they do happen, no one believes it anymore.
Right.
No one believes it anymore. So when you're constantly throwing that out as your only, storyline, for lack of a better word, like, it's really an unfortunate thing to do. And it's very, very damaging, I think, to the community. So, and it's funny that you brought up the other woman too. I'm going to get a little bit messy just for 2 seconds here.
Oh, we love that here.
But just for 2 seconds.
It's all
Not
said
too
respectfully.
messy. Respectfully. Just a tiny bit messy. But it's so funny because when I went to New York last year and I was doing my press run, and I went to drinks with Carrie Champion, who, she used to do ESPN with my husband. I've known her for such a very long time, right? And she used to work with my husband at ESPN. And I guess she saw that I was in town. She was in New York too. Like, let's go get drinks. Never had drinks with her separately in my life, but very, very persistent. Let's go have drinks. So we go to drinks at like 1 o'clock in the morning, something really, really late. And the entire time we're having drinks, she is just asking me about very specific questions. Let's just say that. Very specific questions. And I'm like, oh, this feels like an interview. Anyway. And then, 2 months later, I'm fired from the show, and her best friend is now on the show.
Oh.
Yeah. Isn't that interesting? So I'm like, funny how she was probably interviewing me with all those very specific questions so that she could feed that information to her best friend that is, I guess, taking my spot on the show, so she would know how to play her cards right. Wow. Interesting, huh?
You really have to watch your back in every
direction. You really
direction.
have to watch your back. Yeah, you really have to watch your back.
These networks.
Yeah, wild. I know, wild. And I am just thinking like, big sis looking out for me. How you doing? Blah, 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 blah. No, she's like interviewing for, and I mean, and good for the other lady. Like I hope she had a great season. Again, I don't watch it. I don't know much about like what's happening, but you know what? I hope she had a wonderful season. If she did, I'm sure it's because, her friend told her that Dorit is wonderful and go be friends with Dorit. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Yeah. You got to watch your back in this industry.
So now that you're being more outspoken about politics, have you received more support from people in Beverly Hills, and especially people from your old cast?
People in Beverly Hills, it's interesting because Beverly Hills, Los Angeles, California is still very, very blue, as you and I both know. But I've definitely seen and felt a dramatic shift. People are starting to be more vocal about voting conservative and voting for Trump. It's very funny because there are these really big circles of people that will all talk amongst each other, but won't tell their friends that they voted for Trump. And so, because as you and I both know very well, like, you know, liberals will get very, very angry. They will be very angry. They will be very aggressive. Everything changes. People start acting different towards you. And so these people know that. And so they'll talk amongst each other, but they'll still pretend to their friends that they voted Democrat, which they did not do. So, you know, there has definitely been a very, very large shift. And I think another thing that has contributed to it are the Los Angeles fires.
Yeah.
That just happened.
For sure.
So devastating. You know, 2-3 cities were absolutely destroyed by our Democratic leadership. And I think that caused a lot of people to really look at how our country, or our city, I should say, is being run. And, you know, asking important questions like, where are our tax dollars going and why do we not have the proper resources to make sure my home doesn't burn down? And so I think that has caused a lot of people to either relocate to Orange County, which is a more conservative area. People are leaving the state, or people are just deciding that next time they're going to vote Republican.
You know, it's really exciting to see how more public figures are becoming unapologetic about their political views.
Yeah.
I even saw rapper Lil Yachty recently spoke up and said how BLM is a scam.
Yep.
And then he said to the young lady he was with, and I forgot her name, but I actually really like her. But he said to her, he goes, "You didn't know that BLM was a scam? It's because you don't care about black people." And she's like, "Oh no, like I'm black. I'm so black." And he said, "That's a costume."
Oh my gosh.
Everybody's speaking up.
Yeah, I know. You know that like saying that like BLM was a scam is still like a controversial thing to say, even though it has been fully proven. People still get mad when you say that.
It's so
wild.
Funny. You can say it, you can whisper it at pretty much any dinner table, and people are going to agree with you. But you go out in public and you say it, then people they have performative outrage.
Yeah. Oh,
it's so funny to me.
Virtue signaling, performative outrage. Yeah. Another person, Floyd Mayweather.
Yeah.
Floyd Mayweather. He's pro Donald Trump, and he is unapologetic about it.
I feel like athletes are inherently conservative just because of the mindset that goes into being an athlete. It's discipline, it's facts over feelings, it's straightforward. Let's get to work and let's work harder than we did yesterday.
Yeah.
And liberals don't want to work these days. These leftists do not want to work. They're lazy. Not all of them, but majority of them are lazy. They're entitled. They're wanting handouts. They have excuses, and that's comfortable for them.
Right. Yeah, I think it definitely goes back to like the athlete mindset of like working hard and working to get what you want out of life. And, you know, that is really a skill. Like building that muscle is a skill. And a lot of people have just become very comfortable with relying on society to provide certain things for them. And that's just, you know, that is not a sustainable model going forward.
Last couple questions I want to ask you. One of the things I love about you is how in love you are with your husband and how in love your husband is with you. Mm-hmm. And with you being an educated Black woman in a healthy marriage, when I look at a lot of graduations now, you see a lot of Black women outpacing when it comes to education metrics today. Yeah. You see a lot of Black women out at these graduation ceremonies, but you don't see a lot of Black women with rings on their fingers compared to other ethnicities. Mm-hmm. Why do you think that is? And what do you think the solution is?
I think that one thing that kind of plagues us is we have been taught to truly believe that we don't need a man, and we're a little bit too vocal about that. One of the things I tell young ladies is that there's nothing wrong with wanting to be in a relationship. You can be uber successful in your chosen profession and still want to be a wife and a mother and take care of your home. Like those things are not mutually exclusive. But I think there's just been this radical shift towards I don't need a man for anything. I can do it by myself. And look at that on the receiving end. Mm-hmm. No man wants to hear that. Right. Like no man wants to hear from the jump, like, I don't need you. I can do great without you. Like, that is not attractive to anybody. And so I really think it's this energy that we're giving off to men that is really, really off-putting. And like, let me say this. I don't need my husband. I want him though. And I'm okay with being vulnerable enough to state that. But I think we've just moved so far away from that. And I know there are the statistics that, Black women are now the most educated demographic, and we're outpacing Black men in terms of degrees and our earning power and all those kinds of things. And I think one thing we also need to do is be a little bit more, this is going to hurt. Sorry, like ladies, this is going to hurt a little bit. I'm sorry. I'm just going to say it. Got to keep it real.
Respectfully,
we have to be a little bit more realistic with ourselves sometimes. Let me tell you a story before I fully explain that. So before I met my husband, I had this very big, like, conscious shift. I was in my mid to late 20s. I was going out all the time, just, enjoying life. I had a great 20s. And then, and I was in this relationship for 6.5 years, and amazing guy. But I just knew that this was not my person. This is not going to be my life partner. And, I just got very serious about, these are the kinds of things that I'm looking for in an individual. The number one thing I was looking for was someone that was ambitious. Because I, again, feel like I'm that kind of person I'm always raising my goals. I'm always setting new expectations for myself. And I didn't want to go through life feeling like I was dragging someone behind me. So I needed someone that was going to constantly push me and be more ambitious than I was. And in finding that person, I knew that I was going to have to be that person.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Exactly.
So I'm like, if I want a person that has A, B, C, D, and E going for themselves, what am I bringing to the table? I think now we're in this really delusional cycle. Sorry, delusional for lack of a better word, but delusional cycle that we just deserve everything. Like I give me. We are constantly consuming everything. And we think that we don't have to give anything back to the other person. He needs to make 6-7 figures. He needs to be 6'2". He needs to, drive this car. He needs to have this job. We have all of these requirements, demands, but we are not equally yoked.
Right.
And so, a man can look at you, and there are so fewer demographically than Black men than there are Black women. So if you really,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's a thing. It's a really exciting thing.
Interesting.
We should fact check that, but I'm pretty sure. But so if you want to be the one, what are you bringing to the table that makes you the one that is actually deserving of that? And women don't even like to hear the word deserving. I just deserve that because, well, you need to bring something to the table too. So I just always tell young ladies, like, take this period of time, work on yourself, become the most yoked version of yourself that you can to attract what it is that you want in your partner. And I'm really big on like manifesting things. And, 8 months after that mindset shift that I had, I met my husband.
Wow.
Yeah. So.
And I know he doesn't play about you.
He doesn't play about me. Yeah.
And then you two have a nonprofit together. You're building something beautiful together. Tell me more about that.
We do. We have our nonprofit. It's called Project Transition. Him and I started it in 2014. We were both those kind of fork in the road children. Like I said, I grew up very humble beginnings, raised by a single mother. Sports was my vehicle, to get my undergraduate degree. He is from Compton, California. Also very, very humble beginnings. He ended up going to an Ivy League college, to the NFL. We were able to do those things because we had people that were, behind us and in our corners. So with our nonprofit, we educate and empower youth in underserved communities. We provide opportunities, resources, and funding so that they're able to overcome the barriers that are around them so they can be greater than their greatest excuse in order to reach their full potential.
I love that. Greater than their greatest excuse.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you have all these children who, I want to do this, but I don't have the transportation to get there. I don't have the opportunity to even be in those environments, to be in those rooms. I remember my husband telling me when he was a kid growing up in Compton, he's like, I never went north of Pico. And apparently that's a phrase, like north versus south of Pico. He's like, why would I have ever gone to Beverly Hills as a child? There's nothing there for me. So we want these kids to know, hey, you know what? We're going to go to this country club today, and we're going to do a whole program around how to dress. We're going to teach you how to golf. We're going to play pickleball. You know, we're going to take them outside of their elements and their comfort zones into new experiences and teach them that they belong in any room that they walk into.
Wow.
Yeah.
See, I absolutely love that, especially like I know with my upbringing and not growing up in the best situation, and it's so funny to say out loud and it's corny, but at the same time, I'm glad I did it because it showed my mindset even as a young kid.
Yeah.
I didn't know what it was like to go to a fancy dinner.
Right.
So what I would do is I would go on YouTube when YouTube had first started really, and I would look up etiquette classes and etiquette tutorials and which fork do I use with which food. I wanted to look like I've been here before.
Yeah.
And I used to even go on Google Earth and I would zoom into places and like, you know, how you can get it to like walk down the road just so I could understand like what is the vibe like in different places.
Absolutely.
And as random as that is, I really do feel like it manifested and prepared me for the life I'm able to live now by the grace of God.
Absolutely.
Here in the Beverly Hills area.
Yep.
So
I couldn't agree with that more. I
that's
mean,
amazing.
I didn't go on an airplane until I was 16 years old. You know, it's all about showing people that they can overcome their circumstances.
And they can.
And they can.
I'm so glad you came today, my cousin. Where can everybody find you and how can they support you?
Oh, let's see. You can go to projecttransition.org, look into what we're doing, donate. We would love to have you involved. I'm on Instagram at Annemarie Wiley, on X and TikTok at the same, at Annemarie Wiley. And keep following me because there's lots of exciting things that are coming up in the very near future.
Oh, I'm excited to hear. I hope I get that tea behind the scenes. Thank you, cousin. I'll see you soon.
Bye, my love.